There is a serious flaw in how modern homes are designed, and most people never realize it until the power goes out. Decades ago, people survived brutal winters in houses that had no electricity, no furnaces, no insulation foam, and no modern technology at all. Yet those homes stayed warm long after the fire went out. Today, our advanced houses collapse into freezing boxes within hours of a blackout. That contradiction should bother you. In the mid-1980s, researchers examined a traditional Icelandic turf home during peak winter. Outside temperatures were close to -40 degrees. Inside the house, the temperature stayed near 60 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no central heating system. No electricity, just thick earth walls, and a small fire burned briefly each day. Even more shocking, after the fire stopped, the home stayed warm for days. Entire families lived this way for generations. Now compare that to a modern house. When a winter storm knocks out power today, indoor temperatures in most new homes drop below freezing in less than 6 hours. Pipes burst, walls sweat, families pile under blankets. By morning, the house is unsafe to live in. So what changed? How did buildings made from soil and grass outperform homes filled with fiberglass, vapor barriers, and energy-efficient windows? Before we go further, think about this for a moment. Have you ever lost power during winter? How fast did your home cool down? Minutes? Hours? Could you see your breath by nightfall? Because what you're about to learn completely flips modern building logic on its head. A controlled experiment that shocked engineers in the early 2000s. Researchers at the University of Iceland recreated an experiment. They built two small structures side by side. One was a reconstructed turf house, built using traditional methods. Walls made from stacked earth blocks over 3 feet thick. Tiny windows, no modern insulation, no vapor barriers. The other was a modern building, constructed to current code. High R-value insulation, plastic vapor control layers, energy-efficient windows. Both buildings were heated to the same temperature. Then the heat was shut off completely. The modern structure cooled rapidly. Within hours, it crossed into freezing territory. The turf house barely changed. After 2 days without heat, it was still comfortably warm. After 4 days, it remained above freezing. The primitive building stayed livable. The modern one became dangerous. Why modern insulation fails? Without power, most engineers focus on one number, R value. Higher R value means better insulation, or so we're told. But R value only measures how fast heat moves, not how much heat a structure can hold. That missing factor is thermal mass. Turf walls weigh tens of pounds per square foot. That mass absorbs heat and stores it. When a fire burns inside a turf house, the walls don't just block cold, they soak up warmth like a battery. Once charged, they slowly release heat back into the space for days. Modern walls are hollow and lightweight. Drywall, insulation, plastic, siding, they weigh almost nothing. There's no storage, just delay. Once the heat source stops, warmth escapes and nothing replaces it. That's why modern homes feel cold almost immediately during outages. The roof was a heat battery, though the walls weren't the only secret. Traditional turf homes had living roofs, thick layers of soil and grass laid over wood and bark. These roofs weighed dozens of pounds per square foot and absorbed rising heat. Instead of heat escaping upward like it does in modern homes, it was captured overhead and slowly radiated back down. In summer, those same roofs blocked heat from entering. In winter, they held warmth in like a thermal blanket. Modern roofs are thin, leaky, and lightweight. Even with attic insulation, there's almost no heat storage above your head. Windows. The silent heat killers. Modern homes are filled with glass. Large windows, sliding doors, walls of transparency. They look beautiful, and they leak heat non-stop. Even high-quality windows lose heat far faster than insulated walls. When you add up all the glass in a modern house, windows become one of the biggest sources of heat loss. Traditional turf homes avoided this mistake. Windows were tiny, deeply recessed, and easy to cover at night. Builders knew that every opening weakened the thermal envelope. Light mattered less than survival. Airtight, without plastic. Modern construction tries to control air with membranes, tapes, and sealants. But these systems fail constantly. Every outlet, wire, pipe, and joint becomes a leak. Turf homes achieved airtightness through mass and simplicity. Few penetrations, dense materials. Walls pressed together by the weight of the roof. Over time, the structure sealed itself tighter. Modern testing has shown that some historic turf buildings outperform today's most demanding energy standards. Moisture that works with the building. Modern walls trap moisture when things go wrong. Once water gets in, it has nowhere to go. Mold and rot follow. Earth walls behave differently. They absorb moisture when humidity is high and release it when conditions dry. This naturally regulates indoor humidity without machines. The building breathes instead of fighting physics. Radiant heat versus blown air. Modern heating warms air. Traditional heating warmed surfaces. Stone hearths and thick walls radiated warmth directly to people and objects. Comfort didn't depend on hot air blasting constantly. Even at lower temperatures, spaces felt warm. When the fire stopped, the building itself kept working. Why we abandoned a superior system? The reason wasn't performance. It was speed, scale, and profit. After World War II, the goal was fast construction, using factory materials and unskilled labor. Stick framing won because it could be mass-produced. Turf building couldn't. Cheap energy made inefficiency invisible. Big windows sold houses. Dependence on constant power became normal. Homes stopped being shelters and became machines that only function when plugged in. Using these lessons today, you don't need to rebuild with turf to apply these ideas. Add thermal mass. Reduce unnecessary glass. Seal major air leaks, not cosmetic ones. Use radiant heating where possible. Plan for heat retention, not just insulation. The physics hasn't changed, only our priorities have. If this made you question how modern homes are built, subscribe. We're uncovering the forgotten knowledge that kept people alive long before the grid existed. This wasn't magic. It was intelligent design grounded in physics, and it still works. Ever wondered why a modern home can turn into an icebox just hours after a power outage, while ancient Scandinavian peat houses stayed cozy at -40 degrees for days without any electricity? The answer is a forgotten secret of building science, and it flips everything we think we know about insulation on its head. When the power goes out in winter, our modern, well-insulated houses get cold fast. But traditional Icelandic turf houses or peat houses could keep their inhabitants warm for days, sometimes even weeks, with just a small, intermittent fire. How? It wasn't magic, it was physics. Specifically, it was the power of thermal mass. You see, modern construction is obsessed with one thing: R value. That's the measure of a material's resistance to heat flow. We stuff our walls with fiberglass and foam, thinking a high R value is the key to a warm home. And it is, as long as the heat is constantly running. But R value only tells half the story. It measures how well a wall stops heat from moving through it right now. It completely ignores how much heat the wall can store. And that's the game changer. Ancient builders didn't think in terms of R value. They thought in terms of thermal mass. Think of thermal mass as a heat battery. Heavy, dense materials like stone, earth, and peat can absorb and store a massive amount of heat energy. Modern lightweight materials like drywall and fiberglass have almost zero thermal mass. They're like a battery that can't hold a charge. Let's look at those peat walls. They were incredibly thick, sometimes up to 6 feet, and made of tightly stacked blocks of peat turf. A single square foot of this wall could weigh over 60 pounds. Once you warmed up this massive wall with a fire, it soaked up that heat like a sponge, and then, 4 days after the fire went out, the wall would slowly radiate that stored warmth back into the house, keeping the indoor temperature stable and comfortable. The same principle applied to the roof. They weren't just covered in shingles. They had living sod roofs, often 2 layers of peat turf, with soil and grass growing on top. This created a heavy, insulated blanket over the entire structure. As warm air rose inside the house, its heat was absorbed by the massive roof instead of escaping. The roof then radiated that heat back down, creating a continuous, gentle cycle of warmth. These living roofs also settled over time, sealing any gaps and creating an incredibly airtight seal that adapted with the building. Compare that to a modern home. The walls are hollow cavities filled with fluffy insulation, and the roof is a lightweight structure designed to keep rain out, not hold heat in. The moment your furnace shuts off, the heat source is gone, and because the walls and roof have no stored heat, the temperature plummets. We've built houses that have no heat reserve whatsoever. They are entirely dependent on a constant supply of energy. Another key difference: windows. Look at pictures of old turf houses. The windows are tiny, sometimes just small slits. This wasn't because they couldn't make bigger glass. It was a deliberate survival strategy. They knew that windows were the biggest source of heat loss. Today, we love huge, floor-to-ceiling windows for the natural light and views. But even the best triple-pane gas-filled windows are thermal holes. A modern home can lose up to 35% of its heat right through its windows. Ancient builders prioritized survival over aesthetics. And what about airtightness? We have special tapes, membranes, and blower door tests to make our modern homes airtight. Yet, some of these ancient turf houses, when tested, were found to be more airtight than modern passive houses. How? Simplicity, with very few openings and massive, seamless walls and roofs that naturally sealed themselves. There were simply fewer places for air to leak. Then there's the issue of moisture. Modern homes are sealed so tight with plastic vapor barriers that they can't breathe. When the power goes out and the ventilation fans stop, moisture from cooking and breathing gets trapped in the walls, leading to mold and rot. Peat, on the other hand, is a breathable material. It naturally absorbed excess moisture from the air and released it when the air became dry, passively regulating humidity without any mechanical systems. The walls stayed dry and free of mold. The way they heated these spaces was also fundamentally different. We use forced air systems that blow hot air around. This primarily heats the air, which cools down quickly. Ancient homes used radiant heat from a central fire and from the warm walls themselves. Radiant heat warms objects and people directly, not the air. It's a much more efficient and comfortable form of heat. You feel warmer at a lower air temperature, and the warmth lingers long after the fire is out because the mass of the building itself is radiating heat. So, if these old methods were so much better, why did we abandon them? The answer, depressingly, comes down to speed and profit. After World War II, there was a massive demand for new housing. The goal was to build as many homes as possible, as quickly and cheaply as possible. Stick framing with lightweight materials could be mass-produced. Building a heavy, labor-intensive peat house couldn't. The ancient knowledge wasn't abandoned because it was inferior. It was abandoned because it couldn't be scaled for the modern industrial economy. There's another, more cynical reason. A house that stays warm with almost no fuel isn't very profitable for energy companies. A modern house that requires constant electricity or gas to remain livable creates a perpetual customer. We have, in effect, engineered a dependency on the grid into the very design of our homes. We've built fragile shelters that are more like life support systems than homes. They function beautifully when all systems are go, but they die the second the power is cut. So, what can we learn from this? Most of us can't go out and build a peat house, but the principles are timeless and can be applied to modern construction. We can incorporate more thermal mass, using materials like concrete, brick, or stone inside our homes. We can prioritize radiant heating systems over forced air. We can be more strategic with window placement and size, balancing light with heat loss. We can design for passive moisture control with breathable materials. The builders of these ancient homes weren't primitive. They were masters of physics, perfecting their designs over generations of trial and error. Their knowledge wasn't superstition. It was a sophisticated understanding of how to work with nature to create resilient, comfortable, and truly sustainable shelters. It's a lost science that we'd be wise to rediscover. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten technologies. See you next time.